Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's me, X, who's going here with yet another new video. Today, we are reviewing Mortal Kombat. Alright, so, let's jump right into this. Real quick before this video starts, there are spoilers involved for the movie, so if you don't want Mortal Kombat to be spoiled, then click off, then watch it, and then come back. So with that out of the way, today we are reviewing Mortal Kombat. We'll be breaking down the goods and the bads, and what I found particularly interesting. There really wasn't anything. So this is a tough movie to review for me. Just because there wasn't anything really good, and there wasn't anything really bad. It was just very average, honestly. So yeah. First thing with the goods. I thought the visuals, such as like the CGI, was decent. Like, great at times, but also was sometimes fell apart. But overall, they were very good. Obviously, like I said, there were times where they just sucked, but you know, they're passable, and I thought majority of the time they were better than passable. Again, I don't know how the same studio that creates Justice League creates this, because these visuals are better than pretty much all the DC movies that have been released in the DCEU. Second thing that I want to point out was how they used Scorpion. He was the best character in the whole movie, in my opinion. Despite having like some of the lowest screen time out of all the major characters, he actually like had the most understandable character motivation. He made you want to keep on watching for him. His motivations made sense, such as the way they showed how Scorpion killed his family, and even killed him, which brought Scorpion to hell, which is very similar to the origin of him in the game series. I also appreciated how they used him in the final act and like the final battle, where he came back from hell to kill Sub-Zero and get his revenge, which was very, very cool. That reminds me a lot of the games, and although I believe in the games they do make peace, in this they don't. Scorpion literally just kills him. And finally, I want to talk about Kano. He was a very good character. He provided comic relief in a movie that was very serious, which I think was needed because this movie tried to be more serious than it actually was, which messed it up, in my opinion. And dropped it below average, not below average, but below where it could have been, in my opinion. He also was a complete badass, especially once he got his old little laser eye. That made him really cool. And now let's jump right into the bads. To start off with the bads, none of these bad things ruined the film for me, but they did bother me. Just like how the goods weren't fantastic, the bads aren't terrible, but they deserve to be talked about. So, the characters, specifically Cole and Sonya Blade. I did not like how they were written. Cole felt like a poorly written character with very few motivations that really mattered. One of his main motivations was, oh, I'm gonna fight for my family, which makes sense. But, like, that's not enough for you to base a character off of. And his story was barely talked about. We only get, like, tiny little things of, oh, you are related to who is Scorpion. I can't think of the actual character's name. But Scorpion. He is a descendant of him. It passed down. And he has the marking, which was passed down from his ancestors. So, I felt like they just half-assed him. And they had to throw in a main character, so they're like, we're just going to make this character, Cole, and just use him as, hey, we have a main character, so all of these characters work together. So it really didn't feel like the directors cared for him. I think similar issues fell onto Sonya Blade. She had felt like a half-baked version of what she was in the games and what she could have been if they just went more in depth. Her backstory, which is interesting in game, was literally just scrapped, and it was cut down into one line, and I'm going to quote it. I have it written down here for you. It is literally, Jax and I were special forces, and we like hunted down this guy who Kano killed, right? That's basically her whole backstory. She figured out about the symbol because of her hunting down the guy who had the marking. Who they didn't know he had the marking, but she had like superpowered abilities. That's her whole backstory. She has more of a character though to her than just that. Like she does play a big part in the story to some extent. She brings Cole, Jax, and even Kano together, but it was pulled off like poorly. The execution was just not there. She didn't get the time needed for us to actually care about her or her character. Which leads me to my next point. We never actually got attached to any of these characters. Besides like Scorpion and Kano. They all felt watered down to what they were in the games, which doesn't make sense because a game such as Mortal Kombat is really only there for the brutality. There's not much of like that in depth of a story unless you really are paying attention. So this had way more free will to make an interesting story than those games did. But they just didn't. Like they just sucked so much with the storylines of these characters. Cole, oh, you're a descendant of Scorpion and his ancestry. Okay. Jax, don't even get a storyline for him. He's just Special Forces who worked with Sonya. Sonya, Special Forces who's been basically obsessed with the dragon marking of Mortal Kombat. Sub-Zero, pretty cool. I'll be honest, Sub-Zero is a pretty cool character, but he's just like, he's there to be the villain who has a slight point in the story, which is killing Scorpion and his family. So that is like really all that was there for those characters. There's only one character, maybe two, who I actually cared for in this movie, which was Scorpion. Scorpion was the only character who I really cared for. He was, in my opinion, the best written character here, even though he had the lowest screen time, as I discussed earlier. He just had really good motivation to come back, and when they did bring him back in the third act, it was cool to see him get revenge on Sub-Zero. But he's the actual only one character that I actually cared for. The plot, like the stories, like just the entire story, is just not good. It's not great. Again, it's not terrible. It's just so mediocre. And I don't think it's the script. I think it can be dry, but I genuinely break this down to the performance of these actors. It only felt like Kano, Jax, Scorpion, and Sub-Zero had like good acting. And to be honest, Sub-Zero and Scorpion really didn't talk that much. So it was much more of a, hey, we're good like motion actors. That's kind of what we're here for. But when they did talk, they were good. Kano and Jax talked a lot. Kano was funny. Jax was just interesting. He had good lines and performed them well. I really didn't like the way those other characters were pulled off though, outside of them. Acting wise, they just didn't have like the feel of the characters in the game. They felt like knockoffs and they felt uninspired in their like performances. Finally, I had to throw in character design, mainly for two characters, Cole and Lizard. If it isn't obvious, I'm not the biggest fan of Cole in this like show or movie. My bad. But Lizard was barely used, but his design was absolutely awful. He legit like just looked hairy. He was just a hairy like a lizard rat thing. That's the only way I can describe him. And he was mainly camouflaged, which meant I didn't have to see him too much. But goddammit, when you do see him, he is awful to look at. He's not even close to how he looks in the games, and his design was just awful. Like they butchered him so heavily that I was genuinely glad when he was killed off like immediately upon like us seeing his actual appearance. It was awful. Cole's design, once he got his powers, was bad. I actually liked Cole's design pre-powers. Like, if they just gave him his powers and they didn't give him his suit, that would be cool. But no, they gave him his suit. It literally looks like a gold sheet of armor that was, like, halfway done, but then just got scrapped or, like, forgotten about. So there's only, like, one actual detail besides, like, the tiny little grooves in it, which is just a low dragon symbol that you don't even really see. Unless he is, like, you know, unless lighting bounces off of it. Like, so, if he's in a well-lit room, you might see it. But it has to be, like, lighting on that one side, mainly. Or else it just blends in. So, it's very poorly designed, and that genuinely disappointed me. And that was, like, my last thing that I was annoyed about. With all that considered, I will give this movie a score of a 6 out of 10. Could be lower. I don't think it's any higher. I think the lowest I am willing to go is a 5 out of 10. I thought it was just average. Nothing in this movie stood out to me. But it wasn't great. It wasn't terrible. It was the definition of mediocre in my opinion. The performance of the actors who played Scorpion and Kano saved this movie, along with Jax and Sub-Zero. They were pretty good. They were pretty good. I thought they played their characters perfectly. But I didn't think that they saved the movie overall. It was just very average, and yeah, it's honestly all I really have to say about it. Okay, I forgot to mention this in the video, like before. But one of the major things that I also liked about this movie was the action, which definitely helped out its score, as it was just very good, and honestly, a lot of the fights were just very visually appealing. So yeah, that's honestly all I really had to say about the action. It's just very, very solid, and yeah, thank you guys. Now we go back to the video. Or my outro, actually. I will say I am excited for the sequel that they teased to. And I thought this was a very solid video game movie. I feel like a lot of video game movies aren't pulled off. Weirdly, the best ones that I've seen are Detective Pikachu, Sonic, and now this one. Warcraft was just average, like below average actually, and then all the other ones kind of sucked. Mortal Kombat has been like the best overall wise. So yeah, that's honestly all I really have to say about this movie. If you guys did enjoy this video, like always, smash that like button and consider subscribing. I will be trying to bring more content to this channel. I know it's been kind of dead for now, but with a bunch of new movies coming out and a bunch of new shows and all that, hopefully it gets more alive. I also don't want it just to be reviews. I want to talk about like potential theories, potential movies coming down in the Marvel, DC, whatever pipeline. Things that are getting teased. To all that type of stuff, and I also just want to talk about some new games that I'm finding interesting. So I should have a Valheim review out coming soon. I haven't fully played through it, but I'm just going to give it my best shot and talk about what I have noticed and what I love about it and what I don't love so much about it. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and hit the notification bell if you haven't already, and subscribe. Peace out, everybody. Bye.